Hi there and welcome back, where it is finally time for me to give my final conclusion and overall review of the Unleash EP mini album thing by Band-Maid. Like anyone really cares. But hey, you're all here watching this video, so seemingly you do care about what I think on some level, and I am going to tell you what I think because this was quite an interesting one to break down. This was one where we did a track-by-track review of every single song. Do go back and check that if you haven't already. A lot of the songs, the older songs which came out a long time before, like Sense and Corallium, we talked about them at the time they came out, but now really looking at it as a full album, there's a lot to be said. So it's time to really contextualize all of it, bring it all back around and talk about this as a collection of 8 tracks. And yes, I keep on looking down because I have the track list in front of me from listening to it. All right, let's break this down. Firstly, let's talk about the overall tone. There is no doubt that this certainly follows on from where we kind of left off with Unseen World. And yes, we did get hints of where we were going to be aiming with things like Different and Sense. You know, it was pretty clear that the trajectory was basically staying on that kind of let's go for frantic hard rock, really going for an intensity of musicianship, really going towards those more charging songs. So yeah, I don't think there's anything surprising here. I certainly think it works. I think it actually works quite well because of the fact that this is a fairly short, blasting record. You know, I mentioned before, one of my only complaints about World Domination, going back quite a while here, but that was an album where it had some of my favourite tracks by the band, but I felt that tonally it kind of dragged a little bit because with some exceptions it was just hard all the way through. And obviously I appreciate that album was recorded under apparently quite intense time pressures. And you know, you want an album to have the necessary variations. And so I can forgive the fact that, well, but I can understand the fact that this record is fairly low on variation and just kind of really hammering home with the hard and fast songs because of the fact that it's quite a short record. You know, it really punches home quickly. So for me, that's not a problem. Yes, there is a part of me that I was secretly hoping for just some weird out there tracks in the middle, but it does seem that Band-Maid of recent have been taking the more abnormal tracks and then really putting them into different contexts. I mean, we had About Us came out rather separately from everything else, obviously going back again quite a way. Start Over was released as its own thing. You have things like, obviously, Band-Maid and Clupo were originally released as April Fool's jokes, but they were things that are genuine artistry, and you could tell love went into it. As much as it might have been released to play off the fact that they're kind of fun band who like to have fun with their fans, they don't ever release anything that some hard work doesn't go into, even hard wash. You know, they really show love for everything they do. However, it does seem that they are taking those more unusual tracks and moving them outside of the main, if you like, the sort of albums, the longer form releases. So here, I can't say I was particularly surprised by that, but that is not to say that they didn't put in some variation. There was a really nice attention to having variation within that hard and fast sound. And what do I mean by that? Well, a few things. I mean, first of all, rather obviously starting off with From Now On, I really liked that. I mentioned in my From Now On review just how much I like the fact that it felt like the old album intro tracks of old, but much longer form. It was like they took what we already know of them, which is their ability to do really interesting long form instrumentals that play out as actual songs, as actual tracks, and then use that in the way that we're used to hearing those old intro tracks, which themselves were often only useful as intros. You know, usually just be a minute long and just something which was just to sort of build up, like, you know, the intro at a live concert, just to build up the mood before the actual first song came in. Here they bridged that gap. They did an intro that, yes, there's no psyche on it. It is just an intro, which is why we don't really usually hear instrumentals on Band-Maid records, but it was used in a way where it felt like a legitimate thing. So that was clever. They were using those little production elements, like we had the production intro at the beginning of Balance and From Now On, where it comes in with a bit of sound effects first of all. There were little clever uses of non-band sound in there. They were leaning a little bit into the production, having fun with it very subtly. There was those elements. And also the fact that overall, although tonally the entire album was just hard and fast rock, two of these tracks you could mistake and get confused for each other. I mean, you look at a song like, obviously we look at songs like Sense, which came out quite a while before, but I'm assuming, I believe all these songs were recorded around the sort of same group of sessions, you know, during the whole COVID period. You look at a song like Sense, and it really does feel completely different from a song like Influencer. You look at a song like Hate, and Hate sounds nothing like Unleash. Even though both of those songs are really heavily energetic, you know, the mood makes them feel different. You know, the choice of how they do things like the riffs. Most of these songs are just following a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus arrangement, but the way that the focus is paid towards, you know, having a chorus, is the chorus more emotional or is it more catchy, like in something like Balance? I just felt that every song had enough emotional identity, enough difference in where the pressure, where the sort of the intensity was put in the songs, whether they were more about having an easy and accessible chorus, about having a chorus where all of the intensity and all the anger came out as a form of catharsis. There was F's and TH's all over that. For me, that means that no two of these tracks are just interchangeable, which I had pointed out. There were a couple of tracks, names, on World Domination where I was like, well, you got that one, so you can pretty much get rid of that one. So yeah, for me, that's the real core sign of quality here, is that every single track felt like it belonged. Every single track felt like it needed to be there. And that is such a high quality for any record to have, especially when all of the songs are basically of a very similar musical tone. Not emotional tone, but musical tone, you know, hard rock fast. So highlights on this album. Well, again, I guess it should be a real credit that I struggled to not call everything a highlight. I mean, Sense was a track that when it first came out, I remember thinking, well, I preferred on that Sense single, I preferred Corallium to it. I preferred Hibana to it. Hibana was my favorite track on those three, and I can tell they kept it off of this so that there is still a reason to shift those copies of Sense that they probably printed. You know, because if all of those tracks were on here, then those would all just become dead stock. So they had to leave the best one on there. But as a result, so Sense to me was never the strongest track. I liked it, but it never quite had as much impact as the best singles. As I mentioned, Corallium, I really liked that from the moment that came out. So that's a track I really enjoyed on here. From now on, almost because of its positioning, you can kind of just say, well, look, it can kind of strike that from because it's its own thing. Of course, that's a highlight, but for a very different reason. The Unleashed single, I absolutely adore. That stuck with me. That's really continued to be one of my favorites. And yeah, Influencer as well. I think Influencer, I love the sort of mid-tempo vibe. I love that it's more playful than the title track was, more playful than the title track Unleashed was. I think I like them equally for very different reasons. Hate is an absolute brilliant one. I can understand though why that's not so much of a single, although it definitely could be a single. It's not as much of a single because it is kind of more stripped back hard rock. It's a great way to end the album with a final kick. I think in the context of the album, I love Hate as I love Hate. I love it as a final track. I love the emotional outburst, but I don't know if that's a track I would necessarily come back to so much on its own. But as an album closer, definitely brilliant. I'm doing all of these in the wrong order, aren't I? Balance, as I mentioned, that's a song that it has so many things that I love about it, but it's not a song that I would replay as much because the chorus, as catchy and earwormy as it is a little bit more of a sort of repeat style chorus. So it's one that I think doesn't grow on me as much. It certainly gets stuck in my head, but it's not one that sort of grows on me like the sort of choruses that you get in other songs like Isle. But it's a good chorus, and I love what happens in the verse, but it just, for me, it's a song with a lot of great things that doesn't quite have as much impact in the final analysis as some of the other songs. Notably, though, is the one I was going to get onto last, which is Isle. Isle, I thought, was, of the songs that I hadn't heard up until this point, it was definitely the most complete one. I think Isle is a really great song. I'll enjoy Isle for a long time to come. It just clicks. The chorus is brilliant. The whole emotional direction of it. It is probably one of the simpler ones in a lot of ways. I was kind of thinking it's hard to really compare the songs that we've only just heard in the last 3 days compared to the songs that we've obviously got very used to. So it's really hard to know which are going to be the ones that I like most in the future, which is going to be like my favorite song if there even would be one. I suspect maybe that because Isle has a fairly simple verse structure, I just love the chorus to that song so much, and I love the overall way that it flows as a package. But I think if I was going to say what is my favorite track, there's not really one, but if I'm going to push myself towards one, yeah, looking at the list, I would be balanced between Influencer and Unleash, which is kind of nice considering those are the two singles that were released as singles for this album. Obviously, Sense a long time before. I'm not sure if that was deliberately designed as a single for this album. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of you who actually know this and like, Howard, do your research. But anyway, yeah, I think that it's really of credit when you can look at so many of these songs and really think, you know, it would depend on my mood, which is my favourite one on this. But there were no lowlights. I mean, even, as I say, with Balance being a song that I had a little bit of trouble really thinking of it as a gelled whole song, I still came over loving it. Every time I listen, I'm never even slightly tempted to skip it. I listen to the album and it comes in great from now on. It really sets up the mood and it sets you up for songs that, in my opinion, will expand upon that and, you know, be even better. So, yeah, I've listened to this record now about, at the time of recording this, I was checking and it's about 20 times over I've listened to it. Because reviewing, that's what you have to do. And I never got to the point of being tired of any of the songs. There are songs that I'm more and more into over time. Songs where they've just kind of stayed the same. I guess that's normal. So, yeah, the overall thing is, therefore, that means that this is it's an album that really clearly just works. So where do we go from here? Well, I must say that, obviously, I sort of forward this and stated that I felt that this was them putting together a logical progression in their sound and doing a shorter record almost knowingly of the fact that they were kind of doing it all very much of one tone, of one sound. And also that's probably a knock-on effect from them trying to bring round and, if you like, conclude that whole COVID phase of their career. You know, that's taking things like the Sense EP and taking a couple of tracks off of that and just sort of like logically putting something together which kind of sums up where they are, considering obviously Unseen World came out at a very difficult time, but that would have assumedly they would have been having ideas and starting work on that before everything got bad. So yeah, I think that it would be fair to say that this is them kind of putting an end to that phase, and the whole name Unleash, the fact that's the title track, given what it's about, really does also seem to support that. So where are they going to go next? Well, I think now they've done that and they've really cemented this with Unseen World, as I say, and all the various releases through to Unleash. Obviously, this is a sound that they're keen on. Obviously, it's going to be a sound they follow forwards. I've mentioned that the whole frantic style of riffing and going for those more warbly, funny, chorused, wah-wah, high-pitched guitar sounds that Konami's been going for. Clearly, that's something that she really likes ever since Screaming. It's become a big part of the Band-Maid sound. However, they've never shone away, as I mentioned before, from doing things that were different. So I can't help but feel that maybe we're being set up for something like another album of a similar tone. When it comes around, maybe in a year or so, I hope they get a chance to take their time on it. It's always best when they do. Something of a similar vibe to Conqueror again. Something where we get tracks that are really just unexpected, where we get some real mid-tempo tracks, where they have time to settle back into normal life and expand upon a wide range of feelings. Obviously, as I say, they've got their core rock sound, they are a hard rock band, but where they really get to be a bit more eclectic with what they do. So I'm hoping that the next full form album is going to be going in that direction, assuming they go back to full form albums. A lot of bands are just doing mini albums now, but that's where I see it going. And obviously the only thing that I really didn't work for a lot of people, I loved the production on Conqueror, but the mix wasn't so good. A lot of sounds didn't quite didn't quite punch through as much as they wanted to, as much as I loved a lot of the effects and the soundscapes. A lot of the individual sounds didn't really punch forward as much as you wanted them to, which has been something that they've been so good. The studio work and the mixing has been so much better for the best part ever since these sort of Pony Canyon recordings have started. Yeah, so I think that could be amazing if we get the quality of musicianship and madness that we've currently got, combined with the eclectic nature that was so much more possible before the whole COVID situation changed life for so many people, and then you add that to the level of mixing that has been shown on the sort of clarity of mixing that's been shown in the studio work of their recent Pony Canyon recordings. We could end up with like a real absolute classic next album. So I think the future's great. They're pointing in a very good direction. Yeah, all I really want myself, and this might be personal bias, I want to see their next full-length album bring a bit more of the eclectic stuff back into the album, so that the albums are more of a full representation of their full range of what they can do. But I certainly, I enjoyed this greatly. It was everything that we expected, but as always, they delivered it with just that level of quality that keeps you smiling, even if you know what's coming. When it's delivered this well and it doesn't let you down at all, that's brilliant. So yeah, this was just exactly what I think we all wanted from it, and it worked fantastically as that. So in conclusion, yeah, great stuff. I mean, I kind of said everything I needed to say already, but I'm just going to bring this all around by saying that I really enjoyed it. I think it was a good idea to make it a mini album. I think it nicely expanded upon what they did before. I kind of said this all before, and it just got me excited for whatever comes next with them. Certainly, I saw them live just before the whole Corona thing, so I can't wait to see them live again. I love live shows, especially when I'm actually there. Live recordings just make me go, I wish I was there. So I'm looking forward to seeing them live, hopefully sometime soon when I get some money. And yeah, just great stuff. So those are my thoughts. As always, these album conclusion ones, I just sit here and waffle. So hopefully this waffle has been partially entertaining for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one of these videos. And until I do, drop your comments down below, and for now, ciao ciao.